You people don't get to turn this street into a zoo.
Ma'am, it's my mother's 70th birthday.
Get the smoke in the shot too, baby. All of it.
Oh, I got better than smoke, sweetheart. I already called the real police. Officers, thank God. This man threatened me. This whole thing is out of control. What are you waiting for? Grab him right now!
Careful what you wish for, ma'am.
Have you ever watched somebody demand their own downfall out loud? Because this woman just ordered 2 officers to arrest their own boss. And in the next few minutes, you will watch one sentence cost her a career, a marriage, and an entire street's respect. Comment where you are watching from. Drop a like, and let us rewind. 3 hours before the badge came out from behind his back, Anthony Freeman was standing in his own driveway at 7 in the morning, arguing with his older brother about charcoal. To understand what happened on that lawn, you have to understand the man in the apron. Anthony Freeman was 45 years old, tall, broad through the shoulders, with the kind of easy, handsome face that made rookies relax and criminals confess. He had spent 21 years earning a badge, the slow way, foot patrol in the rain, nights in a detective bureau that smelled like burnt coffee and cold cases, deputy chief in another city, where he cut response times and complaints at the same time, which is supposed to be impossible. And 3 months ago, after a national search and a unanimous council vote, this city had sworn him in as its police chief. The first black man to ever hold the job here. His face had been in the newspaper exactly twice, both times in dress uniform. Hat low. In articles most people skimmed. In real life, he drove a 16-year-old pickup he refused to give up, mowed his own lawn in a floppy hat, and had been too busy rebuilding a department to attend a single block social. The family had moved onto Dogwood Lane in the middle of January, in the gray cold, when streets keep to themselves, which is to say, to most of his neighbors. Anthony Freeman was simply the tall new guy at the corner house with the nice grass and the pretty family. And what a family! His wife Regina was a pediatric surgeon with 14 years of steady hands. Black. Elegant. And so breathtakingly beautiful that Anthony still watched her cross rooms like a man who could not believe his luck. Their daughter Zuri was 6, gap-toothed, and currently obsessed with 2 things: ladybugs and her grandmother. And her grandmother, Mama Ernestine, was turning 70 today. 70 years. 30 of them spent cleaning office buildings at night so her boys could have daylight lives. Anthony had planned this cookout for a month, the way he planned operations, with lists. Uncle Levi, his older brother, had driven 4 hours with his own smoker hitched to his truck, because Levi did not trust anybody's ribs, including Anthony's, and especially Anthony's. You bought the wrong charcoal, Levi said, at 7 in the morning, holding the bag like evidence. I bought the charcoal Daddy used. Daddy had flavor, and it wasn't from this charcoal. By noon, Dogwood Lane smelled like heaven with a side of cornbread, 2 folding tables, a red-checked cloth, sweet tea in a glass dispenser with lemon wheels, cousin, church friends, Regina's sorority sisters, a domino game, aging like wine under the oak tree, and a playlist that had already traveled from gospel to Frankie Beverly, where all black cookouts eventually arrive. 3 doors down, behind a spotless bay window. Lindsay Whitley watched the cars park. Lindsay was 38 and genuinely beautiful. The kind of polished, catalog beautiful that photographs well on bus bench ads, which was convenient, because her face was on 4 of them. Top-selling real estate agent. 3 years running. Social chair of the neighborhood association. Married to Todd, a mortgage broker with white teeth and a ski boat. She wore sunrise-colored athleisure, drank celery juice, and patrolled Dogwood Lane's property values, the way some people patrol borders. And she kept a log, a real one. In her phone, the jogger she had reported for looking unfamiliar, the mail carrier she had reported for lingering, the basketball hoop she had gotten removed for being an eyesore. Every entry filed under a folder she had, actually. Truly named Neighborhood Standards. The Freemans had been on her radar since January, when the moving truck arrived and she had watched from her window a tall black man carry a flat screen inside his own house, and had thought, for one full second, about calling it in. The nice lawn confused her. The pretty wife confused her. The pickup truck offended her on a level she could not articulate. And now, on a golden Saturday afternoon, there was smoke drifting across her fence line, bass drifting across her patio, and 30 happy black people laughing 3 doors down from her open house signs. Lindsay Whitley put down her celery juice and picked up her phone. Todd. Baby. She called toward the garage. Get your shoes. It's finally happening. The first approach came at 1 o'clock, and it came smiling. Lindsay crossed the street in white sneakers that had never touched dirt. Todd, trailing her with his phone already out, held low at his hip like a holstered thing. She stopped at the edge of the Freeman yard, right where grass met sidewalk, and clasped her hands like a kindergarten teacher. Hi. He. Sorry to interrupt. Who's in charge of all this? That would be me. Anthony came around the grill, wiping his hands on the apron. Smile easy. Anthony. We're the corner house. Can I help you, Lindsay Whitley? 3 doors down. The white colonial. She did not offer her hand. Her eyes went past him and did a slow lap of the yard. The tables. The coolers. The domino game. The guests. And came back with an inventory's worth of judgment. So, this is a lot. It's my mother's 70th birthday. Anthony gestured toward the table. Warm. Mama Ernestine? That's her in the sun hat. Holding court. Can we fix you two a plate? Levi's ribs are almost criminal. For 1 second, the smell of that smoker reached across the property line and nearly saved the whole afternoon. Then Lindsay's nostrils flared. And breeding won. We don't eat this, she said, with a small gesture at the entire yard. The food. The music. The people. Everything. Look, I'll be direct. The neighborhood association has standards about gatherings. The noise. The cars. The smoke. She said smoke the way people say mold. I'm going to need you to start wrapping this up. Ma'am, it's 1 in the afternoon on a Saturday, Regina said, coming up beside her husband. Regina Freeman, in the sunlight, was almost unfair. Tall and serene and drop-dead. Beautiful. And Lindsay's jaw tightened at the sight of her, the way it had tightened at the lawn. The music is at neighbor volume. The cars are parked legally. You are welcome to stay. And you are welcome to go home. Those are the 2 options. Lindsay blinked. She was not used to beautiful standing on the other side of an argument. Cute, she said. Real cute. You should know I have the mayor's cell number. Tell him to bring a chair, said Mama Ernestine from the table, without looking up from her dominoes. And the whole yard laughed. And that was the moment Lindsay Whitley declared war. The next hour was surveillance. From her porch, Lindsay held her phone up with a Decibel app open, walking the fence line like an inspector, announcing numbers to Todd. She photographed license plates, every single one, crouching slightly, as if the church van was a getaway vehicle. She measured, with an actual tape measure, the distance from Levi's smoker to her fence. And Todd wrote the number on a legal pad. and they nodded at each other like scientists. "Baby, get the tape measure in the shot," she directed. "Evidence has to be thorough." "You're so good at this," Todd said, and kissed her temple and filmed her measuring. Between measurements, Lindsay worked the neighborhood text chain like a switchboard operator. "Is everyone seeing what's happening on Dogwood?" She typed, thumbs flying. "Cars. Everywhere. Smoke. This is a property values issue. People." A crony from the cul-de-sac sent back 3 siren emojis in solidarity. Most of the street left her on red. And the actual president of the neighborhood association, a retired school teacher of 30 years, replied with one sentence. "A birthday party is not a violation. Lindsay," which Lindsay screenshotted and filed in neighborhood standards under the label obstruction. At 1:40, she tried the city's non-emergency line. Listed the smoke, the bass, the cars, and the quantity of guests, in that order, and was told by a board clerk that a Saturday afternoon barbecue on private property was not a code violation anywhere in America. She hung up on him mid-sentence. "Unbelievable," she told Todd. "The system is broken. You're the only one holding this street together." "Baby," Todd said. At 2 o'clock came the second approach. And this one didn't bother smiling. "I asked you nicely," Lindsay announced from the sidewalk. Arms crossed. Music off. Grills out. Guests gone by 3. Or I make a call. And trust me, sweetie, my calls get answered. Uncle Levi set down his tongs. Levi was bigger than his brother, twice as loud, and had a lower opinion of patience. "Lady, whose lawn do you think you're hollering at?" "It's fine." "Levy." Anthony's voice stayed level, but something in it had gone very quiet and very precise. A tone Levi hadn't heard since their father's funeral. The tone of a man filing things away. "Not today. Today is Mama's Day. Listen to your brother. Big man." Todd called from behind his phone, grinning. Wouldn't want an incident on camera. "This is not that kind of neighborhood." Lindsay said, chin high. "Loud enough for the guests. Loud enough for the children's table. Though by grace the children were deep in a popsicle negotiation and heard nothing. You people can take this. This cookout. Back to whatever part of town does this. Final warning." She about-faced and marched home, Todd jogging to keep up with the shot, and Anthony Freeman stood at his grill, in his apron, on his lawn, on his mother's 70th birthday, and made a decision that would be studied by every rookie class in that city for the next decade. He decided to do absolutely nothing. He flipped the burgers. He freshened his mother's tea. He waited. Because Anthony Freeman knew something Lindsay Whitley did not, which is that some people, if you simply let them, will build the entire case against themselves. Brick by brick, on camera, in daylight, at 2:40, on her back patio, with Todd filming her for what she called documentation. Lindsay dialed the 3 digits. 911. "What is your emergency?" "Yes." "Hi. I need officers at Dogwood Lane immediately. There is a large, aggressive gathering. Dozens of individuals. Men. Drinking in the open." Her voice had transformed. Breathy. Fragile. A hand pressed to her chest for an audience of no one. I went over. Very politely. Just to talk about the noise. And one of the men threatened me. At his smoker. 4 properties away. The man who had offered her ribs, sprinkled brown sugar. Threatened you how? "Ma'am?" the dispatcher asked. Flat. The big one came toward me. Aggressively. I'm shaking. I can barely hold the phone. She held the phone perfectly. Todd gave her a thumbs up. There are so many of them. I feel very unsafe in my own home. How many individuals? Ma'am. 50. 60. They keep multiplying. There's a van. She said van with real dread. As if the Church of the Second Baptist had ever hurt anyone with a casserole. I have photographs of every license plate. I have decibel readings. I have been documenting all afternoon. Are any of them armed? Ma'am, pause. They're barbecuing, Lindsay said. Probably. The dispatcher, a 20-year veteran of that console who had heard every flavor of this exact call, read the address back with no inflection at all. Because professionals keep their size off the recording. Units are en route. Ma'am, across the street. Regina found her husband at the grill and stood beside him, watching the coral top pace its patio. Phone to its ear. You know, she just called the police on us. I know. Anthony turned a rack of ribs with surgical calm. Baby. Regina lowered her voice. You could end this in one sentence. You gonna tell them who you are? No. He closed the grill lid. And the quiet, precise thing in his voice was back. Not first. If my name is the only thing standing between this family and a pair of handcuffs, then this street is not safe. And I would rather find that out today. In daylight. On my own lawn. Than find out some night when it's some other family standing on it. Regina looked at her husband for a long moment. Then she kissed his cheek and went to refill her mother-in-law's tea. Because she had married exactly this man on purpose. 8 minutes passed. No sirens appeared. So Lindsay called again. 911. What is your emergency? It's me again. Dogwood Lane. I called about the gathering. Nobody has come. And it is getting worse. The base is... It's like a war zone. Do you want a tragedy on the news? Is that what this city is waiting for? Because I vote, and I know people, and I am documenting everything. Units are 2 minutes out. Ma'am. Lindsay hung up and turned to Todd. Cheeks flushed. Gorgeous and incandescent with righteousness. Camera ready. Baby. Batteries full. Todd said tenderly. Go end that barbecue. She crossed the street ahead of the patrol SUV like a majorette leading a parade. Coral top, blazing in the golden light. Finger loading itself up for the point. The Freeman's music was mid-song. The dominoes were mid-slam. Mama Ernestine was mid-story. And Lindsay Whitley planted her white sneakers at the edge of that green lawn and delivered the opening line of the rest of her life. You people don't get to turn this street into a zoo. Officer Grady had 19 years on the job. Silver hair. And a stomach that told him things dispatch could not. The call notes on the screen had said, large aggressive gathering. Possible threats. Caller feels unsafe. What rolled into view on Dogwood Lane was a red-checked tablecloth. A glass jug of sweet tea catching the sun. A domino game under an oak tree. And a grandmother in a sun hat wearing a paper crown that said, Birthday Queen. Boile. Grady said to the rookie beside him, putting the SUV in park. I want you to watch how this kind of call usually goes. And I want you to remember it. Rule 1. The caller will do all the narrating. And none of it will match the scene. Rule 2. There is always a husband with a phone. Rule 3. The actual danger level runs opposite to the caller's volume. You with me? Yes. Sir. Then smile. Roke. We're about to get yelled at by a homeowner. The woman in the coral top was already crossing the street toward them at a clip, waving like they were late to her open house. Behind her came a husband holding a phone sideways. Officers. Thank God. This man threatened me. This whole thing is out of control. Anthony Freeman stood by his grill, apron on, hands loose, and watched two of his own patrol officers cross his own grass toward him. Neither of them had ever met him. He had sworn in with the command staff and worked buildings and budgets for 3 months. And patrol knew their new chief, mostly as a signature and a rumor about response times. Grady had stood honor guard at the swearing in. 4 rows back, hungover, squinting. Anthony did not say a word about any of that. He simply reached 2 fingers into the apron's front pocket, where a worn leather case had been sitting all afternoon between a meat thermometer and a pack of gum, and slid it into his right hand, and his right hand drifted, casual as Sunday, behind his back. Sir. Grady stopped a respectful distance away, taking in the scene. The tables. The birthday crown. The total absence of anything resembling danger. Afternoon. We get a call about this address. Can I get your name, Anthony Freeman? This is my home. That's my mother. Ernestine. The birthday queen. My wife. Regina. My brother. Livy. Who is responsible for whatever that smoker is doing to your willpower right now? Grady's mustache twitched. The smell really was doing things. He's lying, Lindsay announced, arriving into the middle of everything, breathless, one hand pressed to her chest. The picture of a beautiful woman under siege. Officers. I came over in good faith, very politely. And that man lunged at me. The big one threatened me too. There are open containers. The music is at illegal levels. I have decibel readings. Todd has everything on camera. Every second. Todd confirmed. Zooming. Ma'am. Grady kept his voice in neutral. Did he touch you? He didn't have to touch me. It was his energy. He came toward me in a threatening manner. I feared for my life. She said it smoothly. Rehearsed. And then leaned in, lowering her voice into a confidential register. Woman to institution. Look, I know how this works. I'm a homeowner. I sell half the houses in this zip code. You take him in. You sort it out downtown. And everybody's afternoon gets simpler. Okay, that's not quite how it works. Ma'am, it's exactly how it works. Sweetie, it's how it worked on the last street I lived on. She snapped her fingers at her husband without looking. Todd, the file. Todd produced the legal pad like a courtroom exhibit. Lindsay flipped it open against her forearm and began presenting decibel readings, taken every 15 minutes. Time stamped. Photographs of 11 vehicles. Plates visible. The distance from that smoker to my fence line measured twice. She turned the pad around to face Grady, glowing with process. I do my homework. Officer, this is what responsible ownership looks like. Grady looked at the legal pad, then at the birthday party, then back at the legal pad, with the expression of a man being handed a ransom note about a lost cat that was sitting right there. You measured their smoker. He said. Twice, said Todd, proudly. At the picnic table. Nobody moved. Levi had come around his smoker with his jaw set, tongs still in hand, and stopped at a single small motion of his brother's left hand, flat and low, the oldest signal in their family's vocabulary. I have it. Regina drifted up to stand at Anthony's shoulder, silent. Beautiful. Immovable. A second flagpole. And Mama Ernestine sat in her paper crown with her hands folded on 70 years of exactly this, watching her son's back. And her face was not afraid. It was patient. It was a face that had seen the weather change before and knew which way this wind blew. Up and down Dogwood Lane. Porches were quietly filling. Screen doors eased open. The retired schoolteacher stepped out with her arms crossed. Somebody's sprinkler shut off mid-arc, as if the whole street wanted to hear. Boyle, the rookie, 23 years old, and 10 weeks on the street, had his notepad out and was trying to write everything and nothing. He looked at the man in the apron, who had still not raised his voice, whose hand was still resting easy behind his back. Something about the man's calm was ringing a bell Boyle couldn't find. People weren't this calm, innocent or guilty. Nobody was this calm. Sir, Boyle said, you got some ID on you. I do, Anthony said pleasantly. In fact, officer, I've got it in my hand. And that is when Grady, who had drifted a step wide, the way 19-year veterans automatically do, got an angle on the chief's right hand behind his back, and saw what was in it. A worn leather case, fallen open against the small of the man's back, and writing in it. Gold. Engraved. Heavy. Catching the 5 o'clock sun. A shield that Grady had only ever seen up close twice in his career. Both times, right before somebody very senior shook his hand, Grady stopped walking, mid-stride, like a man stepping off a curb that was not there. His eyes came up from the badge to the man's face, and the face assembled itself. The newspaper photo. The swearing-in stage. The portrait that had gone up in the precinct lobby in March that everybody walked past and nobody looked at. And Officer Grady's blood pressure did something his doctor would have wanted to discuss. What are you waiting for? Lindsay had run out of patience with the pace of her own arrest. Her lovely face twisted. The vein rose at her temple. Her finger snapped out at Anthony like a bayonet. And she screamed it. The whole street's worth of scream. The scream. 4 separate phones caught in high definition. Grab him right now. Silence. Even the playlist, by pure cosmic timing, chose that second to change songs. Careful what you wish for. Ma'am, Anthony said, almost gently. Did you hear me? She rounded on the officers, and her voice found a register that scraped paint. I said, grab him. I am the caller. I am the victim here. What is wrong with you two? Do your jobs. She jabbed her finger toward Grady's chest. Now, advancing on him. Do you know who I am? I know your union president. I have the mayor's cell number. If this man is not in handcuffs in the next 30 seconds, I will have both of your jobs. Do you understand me? Both of your jobs? Boyle's mouth opened. Nothing came out, because Boyle had finally seen it too. The gold shield in the calm man's hand, and his brain was performing the same 3-step calculation his partners had, and arriving at the same cliff. The woman in coral was threatening to take their jobs. To their faces, unless they handcuffed the one man in the county who actually could. Ma'am, Grady's voice came out careful. The way you talk near gas leaks. His hand rose very slowly toward the brim of his hat. I need you to lower your voice and step back. Excuse me, I am the taxpayer here, ma'am. Do you have any idea who you called us out on? I don't care if he's the president of the BBQ Association. Lindsay's laugh came out shrill. Triumphant. A woman certain. She was one push from victory. He threatened me. His family is a nuisance. And I want him gone. Todd, are you getting this? Every second. Baby. Good. She folded her arms and smiled at Grady. Beautiful as a magazine cover, and twice as glossy. Now, somebody put some handcuffs on somebody. Or Monday morning I start making calls. Officer Grady looked at her for one long moment. Then he looked past her, at the man by the grill, and asked the quietest question of his 19 years. Sir, may I? Y'all, she just told 2 officers she'll have their jobs. To make them arrest the man who signs their jobs. The badge is still behind his back. He's letting her finish the whole speech. Do not blink, because the next 60 seconds are the most legendary thing I've ever written. Anthony Freeman nodded once, and the hand came out from behind his back. Unhurried, the way everything about him was unhurried, and rose to shoulder height, and fell open toward the street. Gold. Heavy. Engraved. A shield with an eagle over it, and 4 words running beneath it that rearranged the entire afternoon, molecule by molecule. Chief of Police. My name is Anthony Freeman, he said, in the voice he used for press conferences and funerals. A voice that did not need volume because it had weight. I am the Chief of Police of this city. Badge number 1. Sworn in on the 14th of March. On the steps of City Hall. He turned his head slightly. These 2 officers work for me. The dispatcher you spoke to this afternoon works for me. Both times you called her. Ma'am, you were lying to my employee. Officer Grady came to attention so hard his belt creaked. Chief. Managed Boyle. An octave high. The word landed on Dogwood Lane like weather. Porches inhaled. The retired schoolteacher's arms uncrossed. Somebody whispered, Lord, have mercy, with deep, unhurried satisfaction. And at the picnic table, Mama Ernestine closed her eyes briefly, like a woman hearing the choir hit the note she came for. And in a precinct lobby across town hung a portrait nobody ever looked at. By Monday, everybody would. Lindsay Whitley laughed. It was the wrong instinct, but it was the only one she had left in stock. A bright, brittle, beautiful laugh. Aimed at the badge. Okay. That's... You can buy those online. That's a costume. Todd, tell them about the costume. Todd said nothing. Todd's phone was drifting downward like a wounded bird. Ma'am, Grady said. I stood honor guard at his swearing in. 4 rows back. That is the Chief of Police. That is his mother, whose birthday you have interrupted. And this is his lawn, which you have been photographing since 1 o'clock. You could watch the arithmetic behind her lovely face. Every number was coming back with the same remainder. Panic went through her eyes first. Then, out of pure muscle memory, came the pivot. The doubling. The victim gear grinding as it engaged. Well, she said. Well, I don't care what he's chief of. He still threatened me. I still felt unsafe. That is still a crime. And I still have evidence. And Todd got every second of baby. Todd's voice came out small, from somewhere near his boat shoes. Maybe we should go home. Do not baby me right now. Todd. Anthony had not moved. He stood in his apron with his badge open in one hand. And if there was a victory living anywhere in his face, no camera on that street could find it. When he finally spoke, it was not to her at all. Officer Grady. The chief's voice shifted into the register that departments run on. You will take the lady's statement. Complete. Word for word. Exactly as she wants it on the record. Then you will take mine. And my wife's. And my brother's. Officer Boyle. You will collect video. Hers. Her husband's. My nephew's phone. And any porch camera on this street whose owner consents. Then pull the dispatch audio from this afternoon. Both calls. Chain of custody on all of it. Yes. Sir. By the book, Anthony said, and looked at Lindsay for the first time since the badge opened. And there was nothing hot in his eyes at all, which was somehow far worse. Every page of it. Ma'am, you wanted procedure on this lawn. You have my word. You are about to receive all of it. Lindsay recalculated. Visibly. I don't have to stand here for this. I'm going home. Ma'am, Actually, Grady said, with 19 years of gentleness. You do. You called in a violent threat twice. Either that report is true, in which case we investigate it, or that report is false, in which case, and here he let the sentence breathe a little. We investigate it. She looked from Grady's mustache to Boyle's notepad, to the porches, where the retired school teacher was watching her the way teachers watch a lie arriving at its own conclusion, to her husband, who had begun, unbelievably, to compose his face into the expression of a bystander, to the picnic table of a family she had called a zoo, standing quietly in the smoke of their uneaten birthday dinner. Not one face on that entire golden street belonged to her. Boyle, the chief said mildly. The gentleman filming, his footage is material to his wife's report. See that it's preserved before anything happens to it. Sir. Boyle turned toward Todd. Hand out. Almost apologetic. Sir. You said you got every second? And Todd Whitley, mortgage broker, ski boat owner, faithful documentarian of his wife's finest afternoon, looked down at the phone in his hand, the one holding 4 hours of Lindsay narrating, measuring, rehearsing her tremble, and calling in lies between sips of celery juice, and understood, with the slow dawn of a man watching his own house appraise itself, exactly what he had spent all day filming, every second. He repeated, faintly. Anthony Freeman closed the badge case, slid it back into the apron pocket next to the meat thermometer, and picked his tongs up off the grill shelf. Now, if you'll all excuse me, said the chief of police, lifting the lid. My ribs are burning. They took her statement right there on the sidewalk. Because she insisted, Grady wrote while Lindsay dictated. Beautiful and blazing. Absolutely certain that the official record was her friend. The threat. The lung. The fear for her life. The energy. She added flourishes this time. He had clenched his fists. His brother had brandished tongs in a menacing manner. She initialed every page with a real estate agent's practice snap and handed the pen back like she was closing on a lake house. Smart, she said, getting it all in writing. Ma'am, Grady said. I could not agree more. In the SUV, Boyle had the dispatch audio up within minutes. Both calls, cued side by side on the screen. The two officers sat listening with the windows up. Aggressive gathering. Men, drinking in the open. I can barely hold the phone. And then, in answer to the question about weapons, in that bright, confident voice, the 11 words that would be quoted in every headline in the state by Monday. They're barbecuing. Probably. Grady rubbed his mustache slowly, the way men do at crime scenes and comedy shows. Then came Todd's footage. Surrendered whole. Because Todd had discovered a sudden and passionate commitment to accuracy. It was worse than anyone imagined, and better than any prosecutor dreams. 4 hours. Time. Stamped. Lindsay measuring the smoker. Lindsay photographing license plates of church vans. And at 2:39, framed beautifully in golden light, Lindsay turning to the camera, saying, watch this. Baby. Now, do I look shaken? And then dialing 3 digits and manufacturing the tremble in her voice like an actress finding character. Her own husband's evidence file, labeled, by her instruction. Neighborhood standards. The chief of police did not watch any of it that afternoon. He stood at his grill, pointedly uninvolved. And when Grady approached for direction, he got one sentence. Delivered while turning ribs. I'm a witness on this one. Not the chief. Route everything to the county attorney and treat me like any other homeowner on this street. Then, after a beat, and Grady, thank you for stopping when you saw the badge. Some men wouldn't have stopped for the face. 20 minutes later, Officer Grady walked to the edge of the lawn and informed Lindsay Whitley, calmly, in front of the porches she had performed for all afternoon, that she was being cited for filing a false report, 2 counts, and that the file, including her signed statement, her husband's video, and both recorded calls, was going to the county attorney's office. You cannot be serious. I'm the victim. You'll have every chance to explain that Monday. Ma'am? Grady tore the citation off with terrible tenderness. Bring the legal pad. Todd, standing 3 feet away from his wife, took one small step that put it closer to 4 feet, a unit of distance the whole street noticed, and that divorce attorneys would later measure precisely. And then Dogwood Lane did the thing that nobody, least of all Lindsay, expected. It came outside. The retired school teacher crossed first, carrying a lemon pound cake like a peace treaty. Then the couple from the gray house with folding chairs. Then the man who had waved at Anthony for 3 months without ever learning his name, now pumping his hand and apologizing for the whole zip code. By 6 o'clock, the birthday party had doubled. Somebody's teenager ran home for more ice. The Dominoes gained 3 new students. Officers Grady and Boyle, formally back in service, were each handed a foil-wrapped plate by Mama Ernestine herself, who waved off every regulation on Earth with 4 words. Officers eat too. Baby. At sunset, they brought the cake out. 70 candles, defended from the evening breeze by a committee of cousins. And Zuri reappeared in the golden light in her party dress, popsicle sticky, and completely unaware anything had ever been wrong with the day, to sit in her grandmother's lap and supervise the wish. What did you wish for? Mama Anthony asked. Ernestine looked down the length of her birthday table, at her sons, at her granddaughter, at a street full of neighbors who had finally introduced themselves, at the smoke rising off the coals into a soft purple sky. More Saturdays, she said. Across the street, the white colonial sat dark, blinds drawn tight. Behind them, Lindsay Whitley watched the glow of a party that had grown instead of died, scrolling a neighborhood text chain that had gone completely, permanently silent under her thumbs. One message arrived at 9. It was from the retired schoolteacher, and it was the last text anyone on Dogwood Lane ever sent her. A birthday party is not a violation. Lindsay, what you did today is... The clip broke loose on Sunday night, the way clips do. And by Monday morning, the whole country was at the barbecue. Somebody's porch camera had caught the wide shot, the coral top, the pointing finger, the scream of grab him right now, rolling across a lawn full of birthday guests, and then the slow, magnificent turn of the man in the apron, and the little fall of afternoon sun on the gold in his hand. The freeze frame of Chief Anthony Freeman holding his own badge behind his back while a beautiful woman demanded his arrest became, in 72 hours, one of the most shared images in America. The caption war was over by breakfast. The winner, in plain white letters, said, "Let them finish." Then the dispatch audio entered the public record at her arraignment, and the country got to hear it with its own ears. The manufactured tremble. The men drinking in the open. And the answer to the weapons question? 11. Words in a bright, confident voice that late-night hosts simply played 4 times in a row without commentary. Because there was no joke better than the thing itself. They're barbecuing. Probably. The county attorney's office handed a file that included the defendant's own signed statement. Her husband's 4 hours of time-stamped footage, hair decibel locks, her photographs of church van license plates, and a recording of her saying, "Watch this. Baby. Do I look shaken before dialing?" Described the case. in an internal memo that later leaked, as prosecuting downhill. And then the investigators did what investigators do. They looked backward. 9 previous calls, 2 neighborhoods, 3 years. The black jogger reported for looking unfamiliar. Twice. The brown mail carrier reported for lingering. 2 teenagers selling candy bars for a basketball tournament. Reported as a possible scam operation. A father photographed at a bus stop with his own sleeping son. Reported as suspicious behavior with a child. Every call logged in her phone under neighborhood standards. Every one of them dismissed on scene. Every one of them a dress rehearsal for the Saturday she finally picked a lawn with a chief on it. The state real estate board moved faster than the court did. Honesty, it turns out, is a licensing requirement. And false reporting is a crime of dishonesty. And top-selling agents are held, per the board's own language, to a standard commensurate with public trust. Her brokerage dropped her by Wednesday. In a statement that used the word values twice, by Friday, workers were peeling her face off 4 bus benches, and traffic slowed to watch them do it. And more than one car honked in a way that was not neutral. In court, 5 weeks later, Lindsay Whitley arrived in beige, lawyered and lovely and visibly certain, even then, that there had been some administrative mistake in the universe. The prosecutor opened by thanking her, sincerely, for the legal pad, her meticulous timestamps. He explained, had allowed the state to synchronize her husband's video with the dispatch recordings to the second, producing what he called, for the record, a self-narrated timeline of 2 crimes. The plea came before lunch. Guilty. 2 counts of false reporting. The sentence was a fine with a comma in it. 200 hours of community service. A court-ordered bias education program. And a formal letter of apology to the Freeman family, which Mama Ernestine read once, folded back into thirds, and used ever after to fan the coals. But it was the judge's last paragraph that traveled, printed whole in the morning paper. You did not call the police. Mrs. Whitley, you attempted to place an order. You treated the men and women of this department like a concierge service for your discomfort. And you treated your neighbors like an infestation. This court notes that the family you reported responded to you, at every stage, with more patience than you have shown anyone in 3 years of documented calls. You could learn a great deal on Dogwood Lane. Community service is hereby directed to be served there. Todd's turn came in the depositions, where he arrived with his own lawyer, a new haircut, and the moral posture of a man who had merely been holding the camera at his own wedding. He testified, fully, generously, in detail. I filmed what she told me to film, he said. I documented everything. That was the problem. He filed for divorce the same month, kept the ski boat, and was last seen explaining to a podcast that he had always felt uncomfortable. A sentence that Dogwood Lane's text chain rated 2 laughing faces and a thumbs down. She had performed fear for an audience of officers. She ended up starring forever in a training video, because that is the last thing the justice did. Chief Freeman took the entire Dogwood file. The calls, the footage, the porch cams, and turned it into 4 hours of mandatory instruction that every dispatcher, every rookie, and every veteran in that department now sits through once a year. Patrol calls it the Freeman tape. It teaches Grady's 3 rules. It teaches dispatchers the audit protocol the chief built that winter. A system that quietly flags any caller whose emergencies keep having the same skin color, and routes the 9th call differently than the first. 4 neighboring cities licensed it within the year. The state academy followed. At the press conference where he announced it, The chief took one question about the woman herself and answered it the way he had answered everything on his lawn. Level. Unhurried. Final. In this city, the police protect everyone. We are not anyone's personal removal service. Not on my street. Not on yours. He declined to sue. Regina wanted to. Briefly and brilliantly. And he talked her out of it at their own kitchen table with one sentence. The law is doing the law's part. And we are going to go be the neighbors, she said. We couldn't be. Grady got a commendation he tried to refuse, arguing that stopping mid-stride should not qualify as heroism. And the chief overruled him in writing, noting for the file that, in his experience, knowing when to stop is the rarest skill in the profession. Boyle framed his citation. His mother cried at the little ceremony. He has told the story at every family dinner since. And he has earned the right because the body cam confirms that when the badge came out from behind that back, Officer Boyle's exact whispered words on the record were, "Oh no." The white Colonial went on the market in the spring. It was listed in a detail that made the whole street exhale with satisfaction, by the rival agent whose bus bench now occupied Lindsay's old corner. It sold in 9 days. Above, asking. To a young family with a swing set and a golden retriever. And on the morning, the moving truck arrived. The new owners found a foil-covered pound cake on their porch, and a note from the neighborhood association's retired schoolteacher president that said, simply, "Welcome to Dogwood Lane. You're going to love Saturdays here." 1 year later, on the second Saturday of June, Dogwood Lane closed itself to traffic with borrowed sawhorses and opened itself to everything else. They call it Open Flame. Open Table now. It started as Mama Ernestine's next birthday and refused to stay that small. Every house drags something onto the grass. Folding chairs. Coolers. A karaoke machine of contested legality. And the long table with the red checked cloth runs down the middle of it all, like a spine. The retired schoolteacher runs the dessert census. The new family from the white Colonial brings deviled eggs and a golden retriever named Biscuit, who has never once been reported to anyone. And at the anchor position, in the same apron, 2, stands the chief of police of that city, flipping burgers with his brother, arguing about charcoal. Uncle Levi's ribs have a label now. The church fundraiser sells the sauce in mason jars under the name Almost Criminal, which is what a police officer called them on the most famous afternoon in neighborhood history. And Levi has never once explained the joke to anyone who wasn't there. Officers Grady and Boyle come off duty, in aprons of their own. Grady brings his grandkids. Boyle brings his mother, who tells the oh no story to anyone holding a plate. The dispatcher comes too, the 20-year veteran who kept her sigh off the recording. And, by standing order of the birthday queen, she is served first, every year, before the chief, before the mayor, before anybody. Because, in Mama Ernestine's court, professionalism under nonsense outranks everything. Somewhere in the middle of the afternoon, the dominoes reach a volume that would have generated 3 decibel readings in a previous era. And nobody measures anything. Because the only person who ever owned a tape measure for lawns lives 2 towns away now, in a house, on a street, where, by every account, she keeps the blinds drawn and her record-expunged conversations short. Zuri Freeman is 7 now, missing 2 different teeth, and runs a guided ladybug tour of the flower beds for the smaller kids. Admission: 1 juice box. Late in the afternoon, she climbed her father's back while he worked the grill and hung there like a medal. "Daddy, are you the boss of all the police, Monday through Friday?" "Baby, who's the boss on Saturday?" Anthony pointed the tongs down the long table, to where a 71-year-old woman in a fresh paper crown was beating 3 grown men at dominoes without mercy. Same boss, it's always been, he said. The program he built runs in 4 cities now. And the academy teaches the tape. And none of that is what he thinks about when the coals burn down and the streetlights come on and the neighbors fold their chairs and drift home, calling each other by name. What he thinks about most Saturdays is the spot on the lawn, just there, where a woman once stood screaming for handcuffs. On grass, where his daughter now hunts ladybugs. Nothing marks it. Grass doesn't hold grudges. That, Regina says, is the whole point of grass. Because the most important thing Anthony Freeman protects in this city was never behind the badge. It is behind the house, at a long table, in the smoke and the laughter. On a street that finally learned everybody's name. The badge just makes it official. The apron makes it home. So tell me something. Because I read every single comment. Has anybody ever tried to make you feel like a stranger on your own front lawn? In your own skin? At your own table? What did you do? And what do you wish you had done? Comment your story and where you are watching from. Share this with somebody who runs the family grill like a sacred trust. And subscribe. Because stories where dignity outlasts the noise are exactly what I serve here every single week.